Roger Jansen.
Present.
Nick Mihelich. Let the record reflect that Nick Mihelich is not present. Tiffany David. Let the record reflect that Tiffany David is not present. Brian Shaquis.
Present.
Stephen Graham.
Present.
Michael Cuevas.
Present.
David Felton.
Present.
Mac Ross.
Present.
Brad McPherson.
Present.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Minutes in your packet. Does anybody have any comments there from the April 10th hearing? Any corrections, additions, deletions, or motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Minutes, okay. Item 3, report from City Urban Designer, Ms. Aponte.
Good morning. I do not have anything to report this morning.
Okay.
So we can go straight to the meeting.
Perfect. We'll go straight to declaration of ex parte communication. Does anyone have anything to declare for today's cases?
No.
Seeing none, we'll move on. Anyone in the audience today that will be presenting testimony for any of these cases stand to be sworn in?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give this morning is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. All right, continued cases now. New cases, PB 1832. Request by Genia Baker on behalf of the City of West Palm Beach CRA. And if we could kindly have staff's presentation.
Okay, good morning, Elizabeth Levesque, Urban Design Planner for the record. So this is case number PB 1832 for an alley abandonment for the Sunset Lounge project within the Northwest neighborhood. So this is a request by Gina Baker on behalf of the West Palm Beach CRA for recommendation of approval for the abandonment of the east-west alley located east of Henrietta Avenue, west of North Rosemary Avenue between 8th Street and 9th Street, per the criteria of Chapter 78, Article 7. So this project is proposing the rehabilitation of approximately 12,000 square foot historic Sunset Lounge and the construction of an approximately 7,100 square foot building addition. So this is the location, again, south of 9th Street, north of 8th Street, west of North Rosemary Avenue. And this is highlighting the project site, which is currently 7 separate parcels, and the alley to be abandoned. So the building that is located at the southwest corner is the historic Sunset Lounge. This is the building that's going to be rehabilitated. This structure and these two have all been since demolished since the time of this aerial. And any tenants that were located within these were relocated by the CRA. Just some street views from Henrietta and 8th Street. This shows the historic Sunset Lounge as it stands today, and a 3D aerial view shows the Sunset Lounge, the building that was demolished, and directly adjacent to the south of 8th Street is currently vacant land, which is the subject parcel of the second DAC case that I'll be presenting on. This property is located within Northwest District 2, which allows a FAR of 1 and allows 2 stories of 30 feet. So the project boundary, so in this site plan, 9th Street is on the right side, and this is the north, and Henrietta is at the top, and that's the west. So this shows, just to give a context, the existing building and the proposed new addition, and there's also a proposed parking lot in the rear on the north side of the property. The 15-foot alley is highlighted here in red, and you can see that the entrance to the site that the applicant is keeping is generally located in the same area as this alley. And this will provide access to the parking lot, to the dumpster, as well as the loading and unloading grease trap and other utilities on site. The alley is approximately 2,250 square feet. And the Sunset Lounge itself, Sunset Lounge, was vetted and approved by the Historic Preservation Board in February of 2018. So the lounge itself is not being brought forward to DAC, it's just the alley abandonment. But just to give you some context, this is a rendering from the front elevation along 8th Street of the Sunset Lounge. So on the left of this red line is the existing structure, which will be rehabilitated. It's approximately 12,000 square feet. It'll have a restaurant and event space on the first floor and seating and a stage in the mezzanine. And the expansion shown here on the right, approximately 7,000 square feet under AC, and we'll have offices that'll serve the venue space, restrooms, and also a roof garden is proposed. This project is part of a redevelopment initiative called Historic Northwest Rising that's been done by the West Palm Beach CRA. And it's part of an overall redevelopment initiative and revitalization initiative in the Northwest neighborhood, and it involves the Sunset Lounge, an urban open space. It's located directly to the south, and Sticks Alley. I'm going to go into more detail in the second presentation on this and the background of the initiative. So generally, within the downtown, we discourage alley abandonments, but in the cases where this is necessary, there are certain criteria that has to be met. So within the DMP, section 94.112, there are specific criteria for alley abandonment, specifically within the downtown area. And generally what this is looking for is that all services will be internalized and screened from public view, because the alleys are used for trash collection and utility services. So we want to make sure that those aren't pushed out into the right of way if the alley is abandoned. And as I showed with the site plan, they are still maintaining access to the site, and that's where all of those activities would occur. As well as open space needs to be provided equal to the size of the vacated alley at a ratio of 1:1. This is a special case where the project is proposed concurrently with a new urban open space that I showed on the previous slide called Heart and Soul Park, which is the subject of the second DOT case. This is directly south of the project. So staff worked with the applicant, they're both under CRA, to agree that this open space could be provided in this park at a ratio of 1:1. So that area of 2,250 square feet of open space is being provided in that park directly south. There are also general standards in the general code outside of DMP in Chapter 78, Article 7. And what this looks for is to determine whether the general public welfare is best served by the proposed action. The staff found that this alley is generally not utilized. It was at one point utilized for some parking. There are existing overhead wires. There is an existing sewer line underneath, but other than that, it really wasn't utilized for too much. The city will maintain an access easement for utilities. In this case, the overhead wires are proposed for relocation and removal. So generally, staff finds that the abandonment for this alley will allow redevelopment of a site that's part of a larger redevelopment initiative in this Northwest neighborhood, and did find that the general public welfare will be best served in this case. So with that, staff is recommending regarding review by the Downtown Action Committee based on the findings of the fact that the alley abandonment satisfies all of the criteria of Chapter 78, Article 7. We recommend approval with the following conditions. An access agreement for maintenance of the utilities shall be maintained by the City of West Palm Beach, and the access to trash collection and other utilities will be maintained internal to the site. And that is all I have to present. Thank you.
That's great. Nice presentation. Thank you. Just for the record, just to note that Nick and Tiffany are now present. That's excellent. Thanks. All looks great. Does anyone have any questions for staff? Go ahead, Ron.
Hi, good morning, Ms. Levike. Quick question. Staff wants us to craft a condition added on to the, if it gets approved side of it, that that abandonment is conditional upon the completion of the Heart and Soul Park project, correct? So we're agreeing to it, but we want a condition that as part of the abandonment, that open space is transferred, can't get transferred unless Heart and Soul is built. So you want us to craft that condition based on your staff report and add it to the conditions that, condition 1 and 2.
You're saying that you want to, as a board, recommend that condition?
I am going to make that recommendation because
Okay.
you say that in your staff report that you want staff is recommending the alley abandonment be conditioned to the construction of the project. So I'm assuming you're saying the Heart and Soul project.
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else? No? Sounds like you need to make a
Brian,
motion.
I had one comment, just so I'm clear, on what Brian's comment was. Completion of the project, not solely the Sunset Lounge project, but the park as well.
Right.
Okay.
In fact, the park, in order to transfer that open
To
space
over-
and recognize it, the park has to be completed otherwise.
Right.
Okay.
So
We're
that
not-
there
we're
isn't a
not
Sunset Lounge
transferring that
without a
open
park.
space.
Right,
Right.
right, and a closed alley, got it.
Okay, anyone else? All right,
I'd like to make a motion.
go ahead, Brian.
Motion to grant the alley abandonment with an added condition of approval, that the alley abandonment shall be conditioned upon completion of the Heart and Soul Park project.
Mr. Chair, would you like to open up the discussion to the public if anyone wants to
Oh,
participate
yeah,
before
thanks
you
for the reminder,
vote?
appreciate that. Anyone from the public like to speak on this?
Yeah.
Good job, thank you.
Good morning, Darren Engel, REG Architects. I'm the project manager for the Sunset Lounge, and the way the condition's written sounds like we may not be able to get the alley abandonment till the park is completed. Our project is on a different time frame than the parks project, and the park project is kind of following us, and we are attempting to get our site plan approval. I don't know if that affects our site plan approval.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question logistically. If they can proceed with the work on paper without that abandonment, and how that would affect the procedure.
Mr. Chair, maybe the condition can be worded in a way that the open space has to be provided. If it cannot be accommodated in the Heart and Soul Park for some particular reason, it has to be provided at some other location, on-site or off-site. So we do not stop the construction and the moving ahead of the Sunset Lounge renovation.
And Maria, quick question then. Based on the design, it ends up being a driveway anyway. It's not like they're putting a building on top of it or landscaping. It's kind of staying in its original function. They're just eliminating the right-of-way over it and creating an access easement. It shouldn't affect construction because they're really not building on it, but if it has to be reworded, I'm okay with that, but we just have to make sure, per staff's recommendation, that we put a condition in saying that open space gets taken care of with the abandonment. That's all.
Yeah, we can word it that way. It has to be replaced somewhere, but if we don't expect the Heart and Soul Park not to be built, we are moving ahead with that at the same time. But I agree, if something happens, we need to find another location where the square footage of the alley can be accommodated as a public open space.
I guess that's the same question then. If the alley if it's being used in a similar fashion, what's the need to abandon the alley?
It needs to be abandoned in order to consolidate the entire parcel.
Just to have unity of that
Yes.
entire parcel? Okay, all right. Okay. Brian, you got some other way that would satisfy your concern of the transfer?
I still have a concern in that if the transfer occurs and the open space isn't in the Heart and Soul Park, where would it be? And isn't that kind of like part of the entire project, to have the open space near the Sunset Lounge as part of the entire project, as opposed to putting the open space somewhere away from the Sunset Lounge?
It is. Anna Maria, can you shed any light on what might be logical here for us to move on with this?
I mean, as I say, the two projects are moving concurrently. You're seeing the second case is the Heart and Soul, so they are moving at the same time. They have the funding and the budget is in place for both projects, so they are moving at the same time. We don't expect anything to happen with the construction of the Sunset Lounge or the Heart and Soul, so they are moving ahead. It's just in case something that we cannot foresee at this point happens, we will have to figure out where to accommodate the 2,225 square feet as a public open space in the immediate vicinity of the project to comply with the requirement of the code.
So it would be in the immediate vicinity of the project, not
Yes.
in some other
Yes.
location that's
Yes.
not near the
Yes.
project?
We'll have to
Okay.
just
So
accommodated.
we can specify that in the condition.
We can say within
Right.
the northwest neighborhood maybe, or within certain
Yeah.
distance if the board desires to do so.
I think it's
Got it.
important to do that because it's connected, right?
Got it. So if we order the condition like this, alley abandonment shall be conditioned upon completion of the Heart and Soul Park and/or provision of alternative open space is established within the northwest neighborhood? Would that be acceptable to the consultant?
I'd like to make a comment, Mr. Chair. I don't know if we really need to make a separate condition. It's already a requirement in the code for the open space. I think we can accept it as staff has presented it to us here. And I'm sure if they don't provide the open space, it's a requirement in the code. They won't get the abandonment.
Yeah, it's a good point. Anna Maria, do you agree with that, that regardless,
Nothing's holding them to
since
it.
it's a code requirement, if something were to happen, it still would be a requirement to transfer that to another location, the open space?
It's not a code requirement. If they abandon and they lose the open space, there's nothing to hold them to reestablish that open space somewhere else. We're losing the open space. It has to be established somewhere. If we don't do it by condition, their project goes on and that open space floats into Never Never Land. So it's got to be locked down in a condition. Staff's recommending that we come up with a condition for it in the report on page 8, saying that they want us to come up with a condition to establish how they're going to handle that open space. So I think we should give them a condition, not restrictive, but make sure that we're contemplating that we're not losing open space, considering we're abandoning alleyways in the downtown master plan, which is not something that they usually recommend.
Yeah, well, it certainly wouldn't hurt, even if it is redundant, so if,
Agreed.
I believe the consultant's okay with this, but we do have the project manager from the CRA here, which,
Yeah, the project manager's here, but I'm kind of confused. You want to show me exactly? Yeah. Let me see my name for the record. Hi, good morning, Gina Baker.
good morning.
West Palm Beach CRA project manager. So I'm trying to understand the condition. I'm sort of behind the 8 ball here.
Okay, so.
I have just a question. So they're looking to abandon the public right-of-way of the alley, but they're still going to be using it as open space. They're not building on it.
That
So
is correct.
ultimately, if the park didn't go through, there's still going to be open space between those two lots.
It's going to be paved, actually. It's going to be used as an access way.
That's correct.
Ms.
We're-
Baker, all we're trying to do is establish a condition that ensures the open space gets reestablished somewhere. We're not trying to hold up construction for the Sunset Lounge portion. We're just making sure that a condition gets established that open space is going to be provided for what's lost in the alley, the 2250 square feet, for example. It can be in the park or anywhere in the northwest neighborhood because we want to keep that open space in the neighborhood, linking whatever it's supposed to do in that neighborhood and establish it there. So I have a loose condition that shouldn't get in the way of construction for the Sunset Lounge, but still make sure that the open space is accounted for somewhere in the northwest neighborhood.
Where my confusion is that the alley will still remain open, and it's going to be part of the overall improvement.
Yeah, nothing to do with that.
What might help is if you explain.
It's still open, but it's not an open
Open
public
space.
space, right? It's like a paved
Driveway.
area,
driveway.
driveway, which is different. Like the characteristics of those two spaces have implications related to the benefit to the community of creating the open space.
Yeah, exactly. I think the issue is like there's a condition, a requirement on the zoning code that says if you are abandoning an alley, in order to compensate the community for the loss of the space, we actually put it in there that says that you have to create a public open space in the same square footage. So in this project, the CRA is actually creating the Heart and Soul Park, so it is
It's
the
transferable.
perfect relationship. The concern is what happens if for some reason the Heart and Soul Park doesn't get built. So we'll have to put some type of condition. I'm looking at the legal advice of how we can, because once this item goes to the city commission for approval, the alley will be abandoned.
Correct.
And as the two items are running at the same time, the Heart and Soul Park is not going to be built at that point. So we have to put a provision that allows us, if for some particular reason the park is not built, CRA will need to provide that amount of public open space somewhere else in the vicinity of the project.
Absolutely.
That is,
Can I propose, sort of furthering Mr. Cheggis's condition, I mean, specifically, we want this open space provided in Heart and Soul Park. We all acknowledge that is the intent of what we're trying to achieve here. If we were to reword the condition that the 2,250 square feet for the abandoned alley be provided within the Heart and Soul Park, in the event it cannot be provided in the Heart and Soul Park, the open space is to be provided elsewhere in the immediate vicinity of the Sunset Lounge project. So we're requiring that it be provided in the park first,
Right.
rather than the condition being a little more loose that it could be in the park or elsewhere, that it has to be in the park.
I think I have that kind of language. It doesn't have to be right next to the park or Sunset Lounge, as long as it's in the northwest neighborhood, it's still in the community that it's serving.
Just one other thought, and I'm maybe overthinking this. Let's say that the redevelopment of the land where the park's going to go doesn't happen. That land's undeveloped right now. There would be a condition on that property that there needs to be 2,500 space of open green space. So that property could never be developed without that in the future, correct? So if it's...
Well, the property, where the Heart and Soul Park is proposed is already zoned as urban open space.
What I'm getting at it is that the park is the park, whether it's improved or stays the same, it's still going to have that open space. So there's no need for the condition, because if the park project stopped, there's no redevelopment of the park to beautify it, it's still an open space in the community.
And that won't change, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe it's a moot point.
That's true.
Is that, Brian, does that concern you at all or no?
If staff doesn't seem to have an issue with it, we can drop condition number 3 that I proposed in my motion, and I could propose a motion. But I just think that per their staff report, they wanted to have, staff is recommending the alley abandonment to be conditional to the construction of the project. So that's where this emanated from.
Right.
Page 8 of the report.
I didn't say recommended, no.
I mean, in the conditions.
Did anyone read the report?
Maybe some clarification from staff on that recommendation. You could read that one of two ways. I could read it.
Can you tell me where you're looking at?
Yeah, page 8, under third paragraph under the response for D, the DAC recommendation of the alley abandonment shall be forwarded to the City Commission for final decision. Staff is recommending the alley abandonment be conditional to the construction of the project. And there is no condition.
That is conditional to the Sunset Lounge project, not the Heart and Soul project.
Okay.
So it's conditional upon the construction of the Heart and Soul, of
the Sunset Lounge. So if the Sunset Lounge isn't carrying through, then then the alley abandonment wouldn't occur.
Absolutely. But so the transfer of the open space is not, the abandonment is, understood. That paragraph is about not carrying through with the abandonment of the alleyway, not the transfer of the open space.
Yes, the abandonment itself.
Okay.
Stand
Sounds like
corrected.
there's a little bit of clarity then. Does anyone want to make a motion on this?
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? No? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. Good luck with the project. Oh, and now we'll hear the good part. Second phase. Phase 2, DAC case 19-03. Again, a request by Gina Baker on behalf of the city of the West Palm Beach CRA. And have staff's presentation, please.
Wait, sorry.
Yes, they voted with,
You voted?
you just voted with no additional
Just-
condition, correct?
Could you-
Correct.
I'm
Yep.
sorry.
I think
just
we're
for
satisfied with the.
clarification,
Yep.
Could the person who made the motion read the motion and the conditions that were stated in the
Yes.
staff report?
I move that the Downtown Action Committee recommend approval for the recommendation of the alley abandonment as listed in the staff report dated May 8, 2019, with the following conditions. 1, an access agreement for maintenance of the utilities shall be maintained by the City of West Palm Beach. 2, the access to trash collection and other utilities will be maintained internal to the site. The motion is based on a determination that the testimony presented at this hearing, along with the application submitted, constitute a preponderance of competent, substantial evidence. The board hereby makes findings of fact that the alley abandonment requested satisfies all of the criteria of the City of West Palm Beach Zoning and Land Development Regulations, Chapter 78, Article 7.
Okay. Do we have to revote, Henry, or is that, yes? Okay, that's the motion, then all, second?
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none. Motion carries. Thanks. Perfect. Okay, we'll move on forward to the next part, part 2. Elizabeth.
Elizabeth Levesque, Urban Design Planner for the record. So this is case DAC 1903 for the Heart and Soul Park, and this is special review and for alley abandonment. So this is a request again by Gina Baker, Deputy Redevelopment Manager, on behalf of the City of West Palm Beach CRA for a special review by the Downtown Action Committee as required by Section 9454B, and for the recommendation of approval for the abandonment of the east-west alley located east of Henrietta Avenue, west of North Rosemary Avenue, between 7th and 8th Street, as required by Chapter 78, Article 7, and other such conditions as may be contained in the application. So this project is proposing a new urban open space consisting of a playground area, a heritage trail, and other recreational amenities. I just want to say for the record, if I say park, it's just because it's called Heart and Soul Park. It's an urban open space. So if I say park, I mean urban open space. Sometimes it just comes out. Park has a different designation with the city. So this is the location. This is directly south of the Sunset Lounge. So this is north of 7th Street. There were 3 multifamily buildings on the site. In 2016, these were demolished by the CRA and the tenants were relocated. And again, this is part of the overall larger initiative within the Northwest District. So these are just some street views. This is down south, facing south from 8th Street. And this is the 3D aerial that I showed before, so you can see the Sunset Lounge just north of this subject property. And the zoning designation for this is currently urban open space. So the proposal, this is the proposed site plan for this urban open space. It's a recreational area for the neighborhood. And some of the items that are being proposed is a heritage trail that's crossing across the park. And this will be showing some history of the neighborhood. There'll be an open grassy area. There's also playgrounds that are being proposed as part of this, and I'll go into more detail as I go through this presentation. So just some background so since mid-2016, there's been an initiative called Historic Northwest Rising that the CRA has been doing in the Northwest neighborhood. This initiative was awarded a Night Cities Challenge grant in 2016. And its aim is to help revitalize the community and also to bring jobs into the area. So this is showing what was on site. This is a street view from February of 2015 showing the multifamily residences that were on site. The CRA purchased these lots in 2016 and demolished the buildings and relocated some of the tenants, or all of the tenants that were within these buildings. So part of this initiative, community outreach, was a very crucial part of this with the Northwest neighborhood. And this included in-person interviews, an ideas festival, as well as pop-up engagements in the community. Phase 1 of the community outreach was really understanding the community's needs. And phase 2 was setting up a actual temporary prototype in open space in real time. So this is an image taken from the Historic Northwest final report that was generated. And it shows that there was a play zone set up, some seating and rest areas, community resources zone, and other amenities to really get the community involved in, based off the feedback from phase 1, to show, okay, here's some of the ideas that you all asked for, here's them in real time, and then again collected feedback on that of, is this what you're looking for? What can we do moving forward? So community outreach was a very big part of these projects. So from these community outreach, phase 1 and phase 2, a Historic Northwest Rising final report was published in June 2017. And this really guided the proposal for both the Sunset Lounge rehabilitation and for the urban open space. And the full report was attached as part of the staff report if you're interested in reading it. It's very detailed and very interesting. So I showed this image as part of the Sunset Lounge alley abandonment, but just to go into more detail, the project is proposed in conjunction with the rehabilitation and expansion of the Sunset Lounge, and along with the development of mixed-use shotgun-style buildings along a new pedestrian-focused Sticks Alley. And all of this combined came from the result of that CRA initiative where they had a goal for the community, and from all of the community outreach, the design of this integrated, cohesive 3 projects just really aims to help revitalize the community and take into account the history of the neighborhood. So the historic Sunset Lounge it was built in the 1920s, and in the 1930s, it served as a jazz club historically for African Americans. The Sticks Alley, so Sticks Alley pays homage to the Sticks Alley that was located on Palm Beach, and it's really playing into the history of the neighborhood. So the CRA really wanted to make sure that was integrated into these projects. And we have the project manager from the CRA and the project manager for Heart and Soul Parks. If you have any questions about any of that, I'm sure they'd be happy to answer that. The Sticks Alley will be coming forward. It's not there yet, but it will be coming forward at DAC at a later time. So this is a 3D rendering showing a 3D view of the park. So 8th Street is the north, that's located on the left here. You can see that this park design is incorporating some musical elements to be cohesive with the Sunset Lounge. So the Heritage Trail is black and white, supposed to be piano keys, and it's proposed to be concrete, and there's going to be some historic information etched into it. There might be some signs along the way. You can read about the history of the neighborhood. There's an open space proposed along 7th Street, the project's southern border. Along 7th Street, it's thought that there could be a temporary stage brought in and that this could serve as seating for those community events. You can see this grassy hill because kids love to roll on grassy hills. Then there's a playground area, and there's some interactive musical instruments proposed that's fun for all ages. And there's a lot of seating proposed through the park. You see benches, there's walls to sit on, there's concrete tables. And this plaza area here is directly across from Sunset Lounge, so when people are waiting for an event or to go to the restaurant, they have a place to gather as a community. So this just shows the playground. There's 2 separate playgrounds for different ages. I think ages 2 to 5 and 5 to 12 being proposed. Also going to incorporate the musical themes. And then these are the images provided by the applicant showing the interactive musical instruments that are fun for all ages. So this shows a conceptual north elevation along 8th Street. So this is if you're standing at the Sunset Lounge facing south. This is what the park is proposed to look like. The applicant is proposing some undulating walls around the park perimeter and throughout the park. Generally, these are only going to be 2 to 3 feet, so you don't have the opportunity to hide behind. Safety was taken into account. They're higher around the park entrance to signify, this is where you can enter. So due to this project being proposed, so that was just a little background. So due to the project being proposed on a property designated as urban open space, the project is subject to special review by DAC, which is why it's being brought forward today. So generally, staff has to review based off of 4 criteria: the relationship of building to site and surroundings, circulation and traffic flow, building design, and public realm. So for the relationship to site and surroundings for this property, there are no buildings proposed. However, the urban open space was really designed to be complementary to Sunset Lounge and to the history of the neighborhood. So what this is showing is 2 different images, but where you see the star is the same location, just to give some context. And staff generally really felt that this would help improve aesthetics and safety of the property, as it's going to combined with the Sunset Lounge, it's going to activate the space both evening and day. There will be light provided. So we've generally felt like based off the community outreach, the design of this really was built to be cohesive with the site and the surroundings and the Northwest neighborhood as a whole. In terms of circulation and traffic flow, staff feels that it's mostly going to be pedestrian traffic from the neighborhood coming in. What this image shows is it took out the trees, so you can really see where the pathways are located within the park, urban open space. There is some parking provided along 7th Street and North Rosemary Avenue. Both 7th Street and North Rosemary Avenue are going through a separate redesign, which will also be brought forward to DAC eventually. So the exact location of this parking, whether the parking may or may not stay, is really based off those designs. Crosswalks are being provided at all the street corners to provide safety for pedestrians. But staff does have some recommendations. We recommend continuing work with the consultants for other projects for crosswalk integration. So there are different consultants for 8th Street, for the 7th Street Rosemary design, the Sticks Alley, and the Sticks Alley buildings. They're all different consultants. So it's been a lot of work, and Gina's been great project managing all of the different integrated projects and the consultants. So as the projects move forward, we understand there might be some changes and tweaks based off those designs. So there's an opportunity for some cool crosswalk design leading into Sticks Alley, again with musical integration, et cetera. Determine if on-street parking is necessary along Rosemary Avenue. It was brought up in a very, very conceptual early design meeting with GEL for the North Rosemary Avenue that this may or may not stay. I don't want to speak out of turn. I don't know what the exact result of that will be, but just see if that is necessary or not to do those curb cuts, or if we really want to keep it pedestrian oriented with the sidewalk just for pedestrians. We recommend pavers to be used or other enhanced materials to be used for the sidewalk instead of concrete. This was already brought up in a discussion with the applicant. They're aware of this recommendation. They just have to determine if the budget will allow for it. And the width of detectable warning to be analyzed at all corners. There was a concern from both engineering and planning that it may have to be tweaked just to make sure that it's accessible at all corners. Just the specific design at one of the corners. In terms of building design, again, there are no buildings, but the design of the park was carefully considered. I just took a screenshot. I know it's a lot of information, but this is just one screenshot from one page of the final report showing how the information taken from the community was really used. So in this case, people rated what from the prototype, from their experience, they rated what parts of what amenities they found to be important. So overall, seating and rest area received the highest ratings. And the second graph shows that of all the improvements to make permanent, the majority of respondents chose to keep the play zone and the seating and rest area, which we're really focused on in the design of the park. So community input was very key to this. One thing staff is recommending is to make sure that the street lighting on 7th Street, when that redesign comes in, is focused on, because there was some issues with the photometrics on that side of internal to the park. There was not quite enough light, so we want to make sure that with the 7th Street redesign, when this park is actually designed, even if 7th Street is not done, that there is going to be enough lighting on that side to provide for safety. In terms of public realm, this entire project is open to the general public. It's all for the public realm. Public amenities include playground, pointed to here. It's kind of covered by these wonderful trees that are going to be put in. Seating and those interactive musical instruments that I spoke about, they're going to be kind of located in this general area. In terms of landscape features, there are shade trees being provided both internal and on the perimeter of the park to provide shade. There is an existing large ficus tree in this urban open space right now, which was originally intended to be a focal point of this space. Unfortunately, through a certified arborist recommendation, they found that it was really in a state of, it was too damaged. The trunk and the limbs were all a safety concern, so it had to be removed. And that arborist report was also attached to the staff report. But a Royal Ponciana tree is proposed at a 20-foot planting height. Typically, trees internal to the site only have to be 12 feet. So this is going above that to make sure that this is mitigated for. And that tree was really damaged just based off of soil compaction for many years. So staff is also recommending these trees that are proposed along 8th Street are only proposed at 12-foot height right now. The applicant has told staff that the overhead wires will most likely be removed here. So if that's the case, staff is recommending, based off of our code, that these be planted at 20 feet height. And that all electrical features for the irrigation, for the connections to mechanical equipment be screened with landscaping. In terms of the alley abandonment, I won't go too detailed into this, but again, staff had to review based off of the DMP criteria, so in our section, to make sure all services are internalized and screened from public view, as this is a urban open space. There really aren't too many services. There's no, there'll be, individual trash that'll be collected by, to be determined, I don't want to exactly say, but it will be maintained by CRA and city. But that hasn't, to my knowledge, been completely arranged yet. And again, the open space provided equal to the size of the vacated alley. The project is fully urban open space in this case. And from the general code, to determine whether general public welfare was served best, the alley was not utilized. It was completely sodded over. City will maintain access easement for utilities. The overhead wires, again, will be relocated or removed. And so staff found that the abandonment will, again, allow for the redevelopment of the site as part of that larger initiative. So with that, staff is recommending that regarding the review by the Downtown Action Committee and based on the findings of fact that the special review satisfies all the criteria of Article 2, Section 9452B2, and that the alley abandonment satisfies the criteria of Chapter 78, Article 7, staff recommends approval with the following conditions. The applicant shall continue to coordinate with consultants for Sunset Lounge, 7th Street, and Sticks Alley for hardscape design features. The applicant has indicated that the overhead wires will be moved along 8th Street. If removed, the height of the proposed trees along 8th Street shall be increased per city landscape planner recommendation. Staff recommends pavers or enhanced treatment to be used for the perimeter sidewalk rather than concrete. The design of the crosswalk from the park urban open space to Sticks Alley can be integrated with a musical theme or other design to tie the Heritage Trail into the proposed Sticks Alley. Continuing coordination with the consultants for design recommendations proposed for the entire North Rosemary corridor. Electrical panels, meters, irrigation controls, and other electrical features shall be properly screened with landscaping or other design features. The width of the detectable warning and location of curb ramps shall be analyzed at all street corners for appropriate pedestrian connectivity. The applicant shall coordinate the lighting along 7th Street to provide sufficient lighting and a minimum of 0.6-foot candle measured 1 foot above the sidewalk at the project's southern border. And the proposed wall features shall incorporate sufficient raised features to deter skateboarding and other unwanted activities. I didn't mention that one, I meant to. They are already proposing some of those. We just want to make sure that it's sufficient enough to deter that. And that is all I have. We have the applicant here. We have some boards that we can put up, show you guys. If you have any questions for me or the applicant or the consultant, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, I'm sure. Would the applicant like to make any presentation or have us just go through and discuss it and ask you any questions?
Well, the applicant's going to say for the record.
Sure, we'd love to hear from you.
This project is long overdue, and we appreciate your deliberations, and the neighborhood is looking forward to these improvements.
Good, thank you for your hard work.
Great job with the presentation, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else right now? We'll leave it open if someone wants to discuss anything later. So who would like to start with questions for staff or the applicant?
Roger? No? Ms. Levike, no buildings on site. What's happening with restrooms? Are those being accommodated? And maybe I missed this in the Sunset Lounge and what their format is internally. Are there public restrooms being provided at the Sunset Lounge, or what's happening with
Yes,
with that?
they can use at the Sunset Lounge. I believe public restrooms are not required unless there's water feature. Is that correct?
Sunset Lounge will serve for that.
Okay.
Yes. And for the record, I'm Gina Baker, project.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Baker.
So yes, the Sunset Lounge they'll be able to access right
Completely
across the
understand
street.
it's not required by code, but when you're in the park with your 6-year-old and you need to go to the bathroom, they need to be close by. Thanks, great project.
Okay.
Comment.
Tiffany?
As a mom with little kids, I think that the prospect of having a project like this is really exciting. And I like Brian's comment about having accessible restrooms, because that's like the thing that happens at the park. You're drinking water, you're running around, and it's like, I have to go to the bathroom, and it's urgent, right? And then in terms of like changing and all those things, I think it's also important. But one question or recommendation I'd like to make rather is where I saw the playground, I noticed that there would be 2 age-appropriate playgrounds. Is there any plan for shade, like a shade structure over those playgrounds? As we live in South Florida, it gets really hot. I didn't see that in the drawing, but I think it would be a worthwhile investment in terms of making it safe for our children and other people who'd be using the park.
Good morning. My name is Zamar Brown. I'm owner and principal architect of Design to Form. And to answer your question with regards to the shade, so as part of us working with a landscape architect, we made sure that the actual play area was surrounded with trees so that we can get the tree canopy over that particular play area. We have bounced around back and forth as it relates to should we integrate some covered canopy into the actual play structure itself. So that is still on the cuff to be decided upon. It's just a matter of us trying to fine tune if the tree canopy is going to be enough. If not, we will be providing the additional integrated canopy. Okay.
My colleague Nick on the board always inquires about the age of the trees when they're placed in the projects. And so is there a standard for the age of the trees so that the canopy is in place when you put them in the park? Or is that something that you'll look into in the future?
So to complement that, planning and zoning did give this particular recommendation to us that it had to be a minimum caliper and a minimum height. So therefore, we are basically we're not putting baby trees or immature trees in. So there is a certain amount of caliper and height that we do have to comply with that was requested us by planning and zoning. Mm-hmm.
Good.
Quick question. With all the nice elements here, the landscape, the hardscape, the water feature, the playground, musical instruments, who bears the burden and cost to maintain that so for years down the road it still looks as beautiful as it will when it's first installed?
Thank you again. That's an excellent question, and we're working out those specifics with Parks and Rec. It is our anticipation that the CRA agency will probably provide funding in the initial 5 years, the beginning 5 years, until we can staff up to bring this online for the city to maintain.
And if I can complement that, per our review with the Parks and Rec, they basically asked us that we take out the water feature because they did not want it to be a situation where it ends up being neglected or ends up being used for the wrong purposes. So therefore, that water feature is now being taken out and it's going to be transferred into either like a raised planter or some type of opportunity for art in public places.
Good, thanks. Anyone else?
Sure. Yep. My compliments on the project. It's very exciting. As someone who had to drive to Miami Beach last night to go to the Fillmore Theater to see a concert, I can't wait till this opens and can frequent a local establishment, especially with the Carefree being gone as well. So my compliments to you. And as the resident tree guy, I must beat my drum again, just in terms of maybe a suggestion and anticipations and kind of a disconnect between graphics. You know, I did check your plant specs and they meet code minimum, which are 12-foot trees. And if you go back to your elevation just for a minute for the kind of cross section, the one that shows a sort of forest and, you know, a dense, super dense canopy. the reality is that that image might show trees that are planted at 12 feet today, maybe 100 years in the future. And I get it. I've been on that side plenty of times, and, you know, presentation graphics and artist renderings, and maybe this will, you know, ultimately look like this, but I'll tell you, it's a long way away. And when you're designing a park and you're having microclimates and specific creature comforts, I'd like to suggest maybe if you can look at the budget and you know, look at trees that you can plant bigger than the code minimum. A 12-foot tree with 2.5-inch caliper is essentially invisible for 5 years. You know, you're just not going to have any shade that you can sit down, and a difference between that tree and maybe a 4-inch caliper tree is all the difference in the world. So just a suggestion, if you can, look at the budget, maybe donations or, you know, bigger trees that can be brought in where day one you might enjoy an afternoon with your kids sitting under that tree enjoying the shade versus a very, very hot non-canopied space for a long time. But really great project. Appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. I definitely will have the conversation with Gina to see if we can increase the budget.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
All right, yeah, I certainly agree with the others. This is a fantastic project, and it's nice to see the, you know, the integrated approach between all three projects as well to understand it in its bigger picture. This is probably just a question for clarification. Item B in your condition, it says the applicant has indicated the overhead wires along 8th Street will be removed. Then the condition goes on to read, if removed. So I just want to get some understanding of what's going on with the overhead wires. Are they being removed? Has that decision been made? Or is there uncertainty about it? I think this is an excellent opportunity to get any overhead utilities sort of out of the picture if we can. You know, we're going to have a nice clean slate in this area to really have a great integrated feel. And as we all know, you know, overhead lines don't really always help with that. So.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. I've been working diligently with FPL and the other utilities to get those poles absolutely removed and underground the overhead wires. FPL is in the process now of trying to come up with a reroute or redesign, and that's why there is an if there. I am hopeful that we're going to arrive at a resolution. As you know, the entire neighborhood is all up wires, and FPL will tell you very valiantly that they're an up wire company and they're not interested in undergrounding anything. But I am moving and pushing. I think that we're going to be successful in getting them underground.
Okay.
Thank you. Actually, not only on 8th Street, but also on Henrietta, as well as 7th Street, all of 7th Street from Rosemary to Sapodillo.
Okay.
Just one comment. Again, great looking project. Just question with respect to the crosswalks going into the park. Are these pavers, are they similar pavers to what we would see maybe going across Quadra Boulevard? Is there any thought as far as to trying to slow down traffic for people going around the park, or is this just going to be, I mean, it's not just going to be a standard crosswalk that's painted. It's got, because it looks like pavers on the diagram, but I can't really tell. I mean, it could just be could look like it, but they're not actually pavers.
So basically, we've been coordinating with, as previously stated, with Sticks Alley in addition to Sunset Jazz Lounge. As part of that, we've looked at different options that we can incorporate as it relates to those crosswalks. So our intent is that it won't be just a plain striped crosswalk. So what we looked at is, on one option is actually using concrete as concrete and asphalt, the comparison between those two, and or brick pavers. Our goal or our intention, we would like to use brick pavers, but we also wanted to incorporate an artistic level into it as well. So therefore, what we also are incorporating is, what is that final look going to be, as if it's going to be artistic material or artistic artwork or something to kind of bring it to a higher level or a higher being. So that's what it has not been final, but at minimum, it will either be concrete and or bricks incorporated. Moving towards the connection between Sunset Jazz Lounge and the park, Sunset Jazz Lounge has some radiating bands that kind of create like an origin point. At that particular area, we are utilizing concrete and bricks as a contrast between the two to create that origin of those bands or radiuses.
So, so there's nothing as far as code requirement around a park that would work towards slowing traffic to the park from all the residents that be walking to the park. It can just simply be a painted crosswalk at this point, but
No, I think your question, it's taken, we are working right now on the streetscape for Rosemary Avenue and 7th Street. So those ones we already know we're gonna narrow travel lanes, and the intention is to reduce the speed of the cars and make it more pedestrian friendly. So those two are, the designs will incorporate those features. We'll double check what will be the material for the crossings on 8th and Henrietta. That it's the corner of 8th and Henrietta is the only one that is not part of the other streetscape projects that are going around the park. So we'll double check to be sure that those crosswalks are an enhanced material and not just a simple.
That's right, I forgot. So all the way up to 8th Street, the streetscape that's starting or that's continuing from Rosemary Square will go all the way to the park, correct? So
the project on Rosemary actually goes to 11th Street.
To 11th Street, okay.
And then 7th Street is also working out as a streetscape project. So we'll have new features and renovated streetscape with new trees and crosswalks and everything.
Okay, thank you.
But you'll have consistency throughout regardless of what the decision is, right? In that surrounding area?
Yeah, that's part of one of the conditions. As Elizabeth mentioned before, it has been really a task to trying to coordinate so many consultants with different projects moving at the same time. So we have been having meetings with all of them trying to coordinate the teams, the materials, and how they transition from one project to another one. So we are in that process right now.
Thank you for the clarification. Anyone else? Okay. Any other comments for anyone in the audience? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that. Anyone like to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that the Downtown Action Committee approve the special review DAC case number 19-03 for special review of the park and for DAC recommendation of the alley abandonment as listed in the staff report dated May 8, 2019 with the following conditions. Applicant shall continue to coordinate with consultants for Sunset Lounge, 7th Street, and Sticks Alley for hardscape design features. The applicant has indicated that the overhead wires will be removed along 8th Street. If removed, the height of the proposed trees along 8th Street shall be increased per the city landscape planner recommendation. Staff recommends pavers or enhanced treatments to be used for the perimeter sidewalk rather than concrete. The design of the crosswalk from the park to Sticks Alley can be integrated with a musical theme or other design to tie the heritage trail into the proposed Sticks Alley. Staff continuing coordination with the consultants for design recommendations proposed for the entire North Rosemary corridor. Electrical panels, meters, irrigation control, and other electrical features shall be properly screened with landscaping or other design features. The width of the detectable warning and location of curb ramps shall be analyzed at all street corners for appropriate pedestrian connectivity. Applicant shall coordinate the lighting along 7th Street to provide sufficient lighting at a minimum of 0.6 foot candle measured 1 foot above the sidewalk at the project's southern border. The proposed wall features shall incorporate sufficient raised features to deter skateboarding and other unwanted activities. The motion is based upon a determination that the testimony presented at this hearing, along with the application submitted, constitute a preponderance of competent substantial evidence. The board hereby makes findings of fact that the special review requested satisfies all the criteria of the City of West Palm Beach zoning and land development regulations, Article 2, Section 94-52B2 for the special review, and Chapter 78, Article 7 for the alley abandonment.
Second, okay, any discussion? Okay, none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, opposed? None. Okay, motion carries. Good luck with the project, it looks fantastic. Thank you.
Thank
For
you.
all your hard work, staff and applicants. Okay, that's that case. Any other business or new business, Anna Maria or Elizabeth? Anyone like anything discussed before we adjourn? Okay, we'll adjourn today. Oh, Mr. Green.
Rick Green, I just wanted to mention, Anna suggested I probably should mention this. I have been fortunate to be asked to move up in the ranks of the mayor's administration. So I was recently promoted to assistant city administrator. I'll still be in charge of development services. We're going to roll economic development under me as well. So my function, my role will remain the same, albeit I'll have a lot more responsibilities. So I just wanted to mention that in case you see something. It's nothing drastic is going to change the way we operate, and certainly the interface with DAC. I'll also mention.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Rick.
I'll also mention that we're getting ready to kick off the construction on Clematis Street, the 100 and 200 blocks. Just so you know, June 5th, it's a Wednesday, we're going to have a parade down Clematis Street beginning at the 600 block at 1 p.m. So if you want to see the festivities, but again, we've done a lot of outreach to the merchants on Clematis, so it's going to be tedious, it's going to be cumbersome on them, but certainly the end result, as we saw in the 300 block, will be phenomenal. So just wanted to pass it on as well. But thank you.
Good, thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, if not, we'll adjourn today's meeting. Thank you, everyone, for your time.